it's so great to be here and to be a part of this wonderful cause for children's literacy, and to see all of you here and to know that you're all reading my work is very rewarding. So thank you very, very much, and for contributing, of course, to such a worthy cause. Okay, thank you. Yeah, this is the beginning. The book is written from Yolandi's point of view, the younger sister. And so the book mostly takes place in the kind of current day. They're in their 40s, these sisters, but she goes back to talk about their childhood sometimes too. And this is that. Our house was taken away in the back of a truck one afternoon, late in the summer of 1979. My parents and my older sister and I stood in the middle of the street and watched it disappear. A low-slung bungalow made of wood and brick and plaster, slowly making its way down First Street, past the A&W and the deluxe bowling lanes, and out onto the number 12 highway, where we eventually lost sight of it. I can still see it, said my sister Elfrida repeatedly, until finally she couldn't. I can still see it. I can still see it. I can still... Okay, nope, it's gone, she said. So that's a paragraph. Thanks.
A book about two sisters, and the conflict is that one sister wants the other to live, and the other doesn't want to live. And amazingly enough, I was halfway through the book before I realized that it was very closely connected to your own experience. And last night, I was asking Miriam to do an event for us at the main venue, and afterwards I thought, this must be exhausting, traveling around, talking about losing a father and a sister. That must be tiring. And I was surprised that you were saying it's not. Maybe could you tell why isn't it exhausting and difficult?
I guess on some level it is. It is tiring, but on the other hand, I mean, the going through the experience was difficult, obviously, and then writing the book was also kind of another trial. And so to be able to finally, just share this story with others it's energizing. It makes me feel like that I've done something worthwhile. And for me to see and talk to people who have just simply lost, have gone through difficult things in their life. It doesn't have to be mental illness or suicide or anything like that. It just creates a sense of community and generates this discussion and conversation. And so for me, that's incredibly just gratifying. It makes me feel so less alone. So even though it's tiring on one level, I'm not a smooth talker, but it's just such a fantastic feeling. So it gives me energy and I'm grateful.
And was it difficult to start writing about this, or was it inevitable that you were going to start writing about this, or is it both?
It's both. I think it was inevitable. I mean, my own sister committed suicide in 2010, and I had a different book out. Actually, I had finished the draft for my book before this one, Irma Voth, and then that book came out, and so I was a little bit just kind of going through the motions and trying to promote that book a little bit. But I was grieving and reeling a little bit, with thoughts and questions and feelings, and trying to get settled in Toronto, trying to get my mom settled in Toronto, my daughter, just trying to start a new life. So there wasn't any question. I wasn't writing at all during that time, and it was I would say, inevitable that I would eventually write about. I mean, that's what I do. I take my stuff, the material from my own life, and I shape it into fiction. So on the one hand, the writing of the book was it was difficult because writing is always difficult. It's work, it's craft. I'm shaping narrative and creating scenes and character and all of that stuff, and it sort of requires a certain detachment actually from the emotional reality of everything that my family experienced. in order to focus on the story and to make it something worth reading, something artful, not just a kind of outpouring of grief, or not something just purely therapeutic or cathartic.
I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit just about the space between your life and the characters in the book, like the fictional aspect of it. How much breathing room did that give you? Is there, you could have written a memoir, because a lot of this is taken from your own experience, but you're working through it in fiction, and I'm assuming there's a reason why it should have been fiction, and you could.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's very close. It's very autobiographical. But fiction allows me, it gives me that freedom that I love, that I need, to make some things up, to also to impose tone and pacing, and to maybe move things around, to create the best possible story. When that's truth is more profound, in my opinion, than in a straight memoir. So the story, I lost my sister, as I said, in 2010 to suicide. I lost my father to suicide in 1998. There's another character in the book, Aunt Tina, and she's in the hospital at the same time that the older sister Elfrida is in the hospital. She's in the cardiology ward, and Elfrida, the older sister, is in the psych ward. And that is actually, verbatim, that's what happened, again, in my own life. My mother's sister was in the hospital at the same time that my sister was. And what happens in the story happened in life. And so my mother has been through an enormous amount. And just in terms of the humor, there's nobody who laughs louder and harder than my mother at the absurdities and the comedy of life. The character.
How close is the mother in the book to your mother?
I would say like just almost exactly. It's really. My mother read the book and said, I don't think I drink that much wine. Do I? And I was like, no. But she does enjoy a glass of wine with a baseball game. But yeah, no, very, very close. And my mother really, and I don't think that I've given her enough credit for really, her resilience, her courage is astounding to me, for really helping me to survive a lot of the stuff that we went through, and for working so hard taking care of my father and my sister for as long as she possibly could. And now my mother lives with me in Toronto, same kind of deal as the book, and she's on the main floor, and my partner and I are on the second floor of the same house, and it's wonderful. It's very important that we're together now. The character of Yolandi in the book is similar to me in some ways, not in every way. I didn't sleep around as much as she does. It wasn't. I like to think that Yolandi, this kind of sort of not particularly judicious acquiring of men, is something grief related. This character searching for some kind of something that's real, something that she can feel, something that's a connection. And that whole connection, sex and grieving, and so that's a little bit of a stretch, though. But just in terms of her desperation to keep her older sister alive, and the transformation that she goes through in her thinking in terms of what actually should she be doing as a loving sister, how should she be taking care of her sister, is what I experienced as well with my own sister.
Now, thinking about how it's inevitable that you were going to write about it, were you worried at all about your mother in terms of her having to read about it, having to live through it? Did you have to talk to her during the process? Did she know what you were working on, or did you how?
Oh yeah, she knew what I was working on, because now we live together, so it's a little bit hard. And I ask her a lot of questions. I get some fact checking from her. In terms of living through it, it's not something that ever goes away. We're living through it all the time anyway. And in a way, the book helps to for not only for me but for her, and hopefully for other people, to sort of give a cohesive kind of understanding of a very confusing, disturbing set of circumstances. But But for her, for my mother, she's my biggest fan. And, you know, I could write anything, and she'd be like, it's great, it's brilliant, it's wonderful. And mostly she does read whodunits, like the mother in the... But so every few years when I have my literary fiction out, she's forced to read it. She does it in a sort of marathon setting. And, no, but she's read the book a few times. I gave it to her, only her, before it went to press, because I wanted her to be okay with it. And she laughed and she cried, and she said that I could have been a lot more critical of the mental health care system. And I thought, whoa, I was pretty critical in the first place, but she experienced a lot. One thing that she did say was, no, it's great, Mary, it's great. But she said, you know, when the elders come to visit the Von Riesen family in their small Mennonite town at the beginning of the book, and you have, 16 or 17 elders coming to the house, all in separate cars, in a line, walking, into the house. Like, Miriam, that doesn't happen. If the elders come to visit, it's maybe one, maybe two max. And I said, I know, Mom, but comic exaggeration, it's funnier this way, right? And she's like, well, that's true. Okay, fair enough.
That was her only comment.
Yeah. Yeah. And I asked her, do you want me to take out a few of the glasses of wine? No, that's fine.
Well, if there is a villain in the book, it seems to me that it might be the healthcare system. As much as the depression is clearly, the medical issue is clearly a primary antagonist, but you mentioned just now, the aunt and the sister in the hospital at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if you could just talk about the differences that you notice when you do talk about in the book between the way we, as a culture, address different kinds of illness and the way that the mental health issues are treated so very differently than physical health issues, and how just as a family member with people suffering, that there's not necessarily a profound difference for you. You just know, like, it's my aunt and my sister, they're suffering. I want them helped. Could you maybe talk just a little bit about that reality of
There are individuals within the mental health care system who are doing amazing things and working really, really hard and are curious about their patients and are curious about the illness and are willing to research and think and work and try to make changes. But the system itself is not a healthy system. There's a difference, I think, and from what I've witnessed. I'm not an expert and I'm not a policymaker, obviously, and I'm not a healthcare professional. But as family, there's often this tendency for even the mental health care professionals to blame the patients. So it's almost like they feel responsible for their own illness. And and if this is happening within the mental health care system, we know that the stigma and the shame is imposed on these people. In addition to having to suffer from their illness, they also have to suffer this other stuff out there in society. And that's slowly changing as people talk more about it. But then to have to experience that in the place where you're supposed to get help and care and understanding is, it will make you crazy. So, there is obviously help to be had, and I think it would be terribly ignorant to say that obviously, if you're feeling depressed or mentally ill, the hospital is not the place to go to. Obviously, it's there and it's necessary, and there's help to be had, and that's the ideal outcome, of course. But so often it's a dangerous, depressing place for people who need the safety and understanding. So I'm not sure what it will take to make these changes, but certainly to have people starting to talk about it and to. A friend of mine and I were joking the other day saying that, I live pretty close to CAMH in Toronto, and how they should, every time somebody goes to the hospital and says, I'm depressed, I want to kill myself, there should be a red carpet and, like gift bags and the press and applause and people cheering like, yes, good for you, and come on in, here's your beautiful room, we're going to take care of you, we're going to listen to you, we're not going to dope you up immediately and throw you into a horrible cell, we'll see what happens.
The idea of inheritance, the idea of your father struggling and your sister struggling, and I'm wondering, with you being part of that equation, do you feel like it's in you, and you just dodged
the bullet?
Do you feel like you got how knowing that this is clearly an inheritance, this can be passed from one generation to the next?
Absolutely, I do believe that. I think there is a genetic component to it. I know for a fact that I haven't and probably will not ever suffer what my father and my sister suffered, because I'm also my mother's child. So I do feel very, very fortunate. If I didn't have writing. It's not that writing can save a person, that's for sure. I mean, this is an illness, but I feel as though genetically perhaps I did somehow get really, really, really lucky. But I have children, and they're fine, they're great. But one never knows. I mean, you just never ever know, and that's the nature of this illness. And it doesn't matter where you are, how happy you seem to be. This can strike anybody at any time. Yeah, the lack of quotation marks. The statement was that this woman and her book club are about to do the Flying Troutmans, which is a book of mine, came out in 2008. Also about sisters and kids and and mental illness as well. My recurring themes. But yeah, the criticism, she says, there may be other criticisms. You're being kind if you say that that's the only criticism, but that will be the lack of punctuation, or the lack of quotation marks, not punctuation, the lack of quotation marks in the book, and that's a style that I've been using for I think most of my writing life, and there are reasons. First of all, I think aesthetically it's kind of ugly on the page to have these little smudges all over the place. Like I always think I always want to like little insect like bits, and it's my own, strange idiosyncrasy. Also, I don't like, when I write, I just like to, especially dialogue, you want it to be natural and sound and free and flowing, and so when I have to do all these weird things on the keyboard, it kind of just distracts from that, and kind of it's jarring to me also, and this is like an admission, I sometimes don't even know where they go. The quotation marks, it's like, oh, do they go on the other side of the comma, or the comma, or or now do I start a new line of dialogue, all that stuff, the logistics, which, and I don't want to be slowed down by that, which is sort of embarrassing, but also I don't want to sacrifice clarity for this stylistic tick of mine either, so I have to often, which one is it? Often, make sure that we know who's doing the talking, and what's being said. And I think sometimes it's a little bit confusing. Well, I love sports. I love watching sports of every stripe, and playing sports, and tennis, and frisbee, and soccer, and ping pong. There's this outdoor ping pong table close to where I live, and Eric and I go there, we're just constantly playing ping pong. And I ride my bike. I just love to be physically active, and I love to go see movies. And my kids are hilarious and make me so happy spending time with my kids. They're all in their 20s, so I don't see them as often as I have in the past. But but that's probably a good natural thing. My mom, just about every night, my mother and my partner and I have dinner together, and then we play cards. We play Dutch Blitz or Boggle or Wizard or Schwenk. You name it. We're just always playing games. Yeah.
So, if you haven't read the book, I think you're getting a sense that it really is a a wonderful gift. And so I want to thank Miriam for being with us today, raising money for a good cause, and also for helping us talk about some important issues and writing a book that may deal with some deep, dark themes, but does it with a kind of beauty and grace, and there's joy in there. There is hope, and so thank you very much.
Thank you very much.